Welcome into the Backroads Bill podcast. I'm Ben, and this week we have a very special guest on the podcast. We had an amazing opportunity to chat with one of the stars of the Netflix series Outback Truckers, which is an Australian series that follows a bunch of truckers in the Outback, as you can probably get from the title. But they were not in the Outback this time. In fact, they were filming up in the James Bay coast for the newest season, just in the past week or so. And Bill ended up actually meeting up with them in his last journey up north, which he just did a story on, some of the ice roads up there. And he was able to get a chance to sit down and talk to some of them. And we were able to get one of them on the podcast, which is this week. We were able to catch him before he left in the Toronto airport, before he left to fly back to Australia. So it was an amazing chat about the series, some of the differences between the Australian Outback and Northern Ontario. Of course, they came up and shot during a cold snap that was happening in the pretty much the dead of winter almost. So they definitely got the true Northern Ontario experience in the winter. So it was really cool getting to talk to our guest about that. So we're going to get right into it. But first, let's throw it to our lead sponsor of this episode, Source for Sports. It's almost that time of year. Early mornings at the rink, fresh notebooks and backpacks, and a community gearing up for another great season of varsity sports. At Source for Sports North Bay, we're proud to be part of it all. Whether it's finding your kid's first pair of skates, gearing up for tryouts, or outfitting your team for the season ahead, we've got you covered. Because here, we're not just a sports store, we're neighbors, coaches, teammates, and fans. And we're proud to cheer you on every shift, step, and stride of the way. Visit Source for Sports North Bay at 1321 Fisher Street and let us help you along your way. So we've had the pleasure on this podcast to have a number of guests from all around the world, and now we're going to a continent that we haven't been to before a little bit, because today's guest is originally from New Zealand, now in Australia, which kind of ties in perfectly because this weekend, I'm a big Formula One fan. This weekend, the season kicks off in Australia, as it always usually does. And we're talking some cars and stuff and more big trucks. But Bill, I want to throw it over to you to introduce our guest today, because this was one that you've been looking forward to ever since you met him just a couple weeks ago.
Well, Paul Sludge Andrews is the star of Outback Truckers, a Netflix series that's been on for 12 years. They're shooting for 2027, and they were up on the James Bay coast on the Winter Road, and this is right now as we speak, Paul's in the Toronto International Airport flying home to Western Australia. And Paul, welcome to the Backroads Bill podcast.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys. And it's Sludge, not Paul.
Yeah, okay. It's always going to be Sludge, but on your cell phone it says Paul Andrews Limited. Again, the real name. That's what comes up on my phone, but. I want to lead off, Sludge, is that it's a timely opportunity that you were up there. And, of course, I must tell people that you've been international before, but in this case, you were working with Sean Innes out of Moosonee, and you actually had to become an employee of the company to make all this happen. Just tell us a little bit about in Outback Truckers, how this came to be and how you actually got to Moosonee and Moose Factory in the James Bay Coast. I mean, I know there's production people that arrange all this kind of thing, but how did the idea come forward?
Well, the idea happened just before COVID. I had it all locked in, and I said to my wife, I want to go and do ice roads. Just something new, something out there that I'd never done. I grew up in New Zealand and we had ice and snow and stuff, but nothing like that TV show. So the whole idea was to go up to Yellowknife and hitch a ride in a truck for a few days and go out and experience. And then COVID buggered it up, and I've been working on it since. And we ran into a girl in Australia that knows the Inneses, and she was like, this is the person you need to talk to, which opened the door. We ran into a lot of issues of driving on roads here with licenses. So every time I was working on it, I got knocked back. So I could never film it. But then because we weren't on the roads, the local police gave me a letter to say I could drive in up the north there on my Australian license, because we weren't actually technically driving on roads. It was ice roads. So that's how it all started and got going. And I'm very thankful that I went to Sean and then, because it was a family business. So I had a family business in New Zealand and I've got a family business in Australia. So that made it even better for me to be a part of it.
Yeah, and of course, Sean Innes, he would not like too many people to know that the Ontario Highway Traffic Act doesn't apply in winter roads, but it doesn't, and so and people should know that Sludge. We drive on the wrong side of the road, where in Australia they drive on the other side of the road. But what's right and what's wrong? But Sean Innes and probably Sludge would tell us you drive in the middle of the road when you're on the winter roads. That's for sure.
I've actually very interesting that, we run on dirt and mud and stuff, and you run on snow and ice. But it's very much the same. It's just a carbon copy of that. A lot of the time up where it's really rough, it's much like Australia, you actually drive on the opposite side of the road. So, and I picked it up really quick that when it's rough on the road, when there's nobody about, if you actually go to the other side of the road, it's a lot smoother, because the potholes, you're going against them, not following them. And when you follow a pothole, it gets bigger. So when you go to the other side, it actually makes it really smooth. So it was very much similar to being at home. And the left-hand drive, well, because I have had left-hand drive cars, it made it so much easier. I just had to remember I had to drive on the opposite side of the road. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting, just from a driving point of view. Ben, you know that Sludge is over 35 years and counting, has more than, it could be somewhere close to 15 million kilometers of trucking. But tell us a little bit about the Outback Truckers Netflix series, because that's really what we're talking about today, and how you, as the star of the program, got here. But tell us about what the Outback Trucker series has been all about.
Look, I started. I missed the first season, and then one of my friends, she was going to do it, and the company, because I had the fuel trucks at that stage, the big company was an international company, wouldn't let her do it, and I said, "Well, do it in my truck," and they said, "Well, if you do it in his truck, we'll put you on." So that's how I got involved, and it's become really good. I tried to pull out about year 6 or 7. And because I felt it was just boring, it was the same stuff. But people follow you as a person, and they follow your family life. You become an open book. Some things I probably shouldn't show, but that's life. It's good, and it's become, now I love it. I meet people all around the world. It opens doors to doing different things. I went to a show here in town here, a machinery and expo, and I would never get to do those things. So the show has broadened my horizons to going to a lot of different things. I've been in race cars and race trucks, and I think it's teaching people what trucks are about. People don't realise the food in the shopping centre comes all on truck, and I believe that is probably one of the big reasons why we've done 12 years now. I think we're going to fall over, but it just more and more people follow it, because they don't realise the fuel comes in by ship, gets delivered by truck, then it comes out of the Bowser into your car. They think it just comes out of the Bowser underground. So I think the series has brought transport into a bigger, wider community. The town people actually understand now that their milk just is not on a shelf. It comes from a farm to a dairy to Coles or Woolies or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing that Australia and Canada, they have in common, and they're both vast and magnificent lands. And the vastness, of course, that's a variable with regards to trucking. And one thing I've picked up on watching the Netflix series and watching you is that most of the time that you're in shorts. And so I know, having interviewed you previous to this, is that tell us about your experience with long underwear and the like.
Well, I did when we got to Toronto. I had my short shorts in my bag and my shirt, and the boys made me fall in a snowbank and do a butterfly. And by God, it was a bit cold because we went from 40 degrees to minus 22, I think. So it was a big culture shock. But yeah, I won't be sad to see the end of the long underwear.
It'll be hard on your knackers. I think that's the term, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're literally leaving as it warms up to like plus 11.
Yes, like the last few days have been warmer, and I'm like, oh, stomach.
I was up there. I was up there, and that time period it was bitterly cold. And then one of the stops on the way up, you stopped in Timmins and got outfitted at Mikey's in Timmins, and you made your
and
way
a big like Mikey was next level. He fitted us out with all the right clothes and stuff. And when we came back to Timmins to fly home, he took us out skidooing. They had us round at their home for dinner. So, like, I've met some beautiful people that will always be friends.
We often talk about the rhythm of life in North Bay. For Amanda, that rhythm was fast. Hockey practices, baseball games, juggling a full-time career, and keeping up with two energetic boys. But life hit pause after routine surgery led to a call she never expected. Stage 2 breast cancer. No symptoms, no warning. Suddenly, Amanda was facing a double mastectomy, reconstruction, weeks of chemotherapy and radiation treatments, and several additional surgeries. The path ahead was overwhelming. Through every stage, one question stayed with her. How do I keep being mom for my boys? Amanda's care team at the North Bay Regional Health Center made all the difference. They understood how deeply she wanted to hold on to familiar routines, cheering from the stands, being there at bedtime, staying present in the moments that gave her strength. Their compassion kept her connected to the two people who kept her fighting. She stayed present, she stayed grounded, she stayed mom. This holiday season, help ensure patients have access to the exceptional care they need during life's most challenging moments. Your gift helps patients like Amanda stay connected to the people they love while strengthening healthcare for families across our region. Visit nbrhcfoundation.ca or call 705-495-8125 to give.
I saw the snowmobile shots, and then the other shot I saw you, which is a segue. I think you were coming out of one of Sean Innes's shops, and you're on that little mini motorcycle, and of course you're a big fellow at 6 feet 5 inches, and you know, I would say that you know this. You've been very vocal about this in your past. You had a motorcycle accident and you went through a long period of recovery and you're back in the truck. But maybe just tell us a little bit about that. But seeing you on the motorcycle, because you have motorcycle racing in your background too, because when you left New Zealand, you came over to the continent, so to speak. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, I've ridden bikes for years, and that's how I went to Australia, was to race bikes and stuff. My accident is now 3 years ago. My son and I went down for a pizza on a Sunday night, and I woke up 4 weeks later in Royal Perth Hospital. Since then, I've had to learn to walk, talk. When I woke up, I couldn't talk, couldn't walk. I've had to do hydrotherapy, and they said I'd never drive again, but I was brought up pretty tough, and there was no way in hell I was ever going to give that up. And I've fought for the last was 2 years before I got a license back, and I fought hard, and they've even given me my motorbike license back. To my doctor's disgust, she wouldn't sign off, but she did in the end because I promised her I wouldn't ride much. So I had that little segment you seen me riding the motorbike.
Yeah.
I've caught a shitload of flack over that. What are you doing back on a bloody motorbike? Yeah. When it's in your blood, it's in your blood.
It's in your blood for sure. And it was good to see you on the bike. Ben, I know you've got some questions.
Yeah, so obviously coming from Australia to Northern Ontario, especially winter Northern Ontario, is it's the complete opposite, right? Like you're going from a more almost desert-esque place to like the desert of the snow. What was obviously there's a huge shock with like how cold it is and the weather and everything. What was your favorite experience though from this trip to Northern Ontario? Like obviously getting to go up to the James Bay coast area, getting to go on the ice roads. What was the moment that stuck out to you the most?
I think driving a truck was awesome, but because that's my livelihood. But the thing that probably stuck out was the day we were in town in Moosinee, and it was minus 36. And I could deal with the whole lot. And I was like, holy shit, how am I going to deal with minus 36? Because at home, when it's minus 40, it's no different. You do bugger all. You try and hide in an aircon, but, well, none of the machinery. We've spent 6 hours trying to get an excavator started. And I'm like, it can't be this bloody hard. And Sean said, once you go over about minus 30, machinery just shuts down and stops. And that was probably the big one for me, was like, wow, when you start going over the minus 30, things don't work. Yeah, which was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you come to, I want to talk a little bit about your truck as well.
The Phantom.
The Phantom.
The Phantom is iconic in Australia.
Yeah.
Like that's where it's Paul and the Phantom. Sorry.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask a little bit about, first of all, obviously the artwork and like the truck itself is its own personality. So maybe talk a little bit about where the passion for creating or painting on your truck and all the artwork and stuff came from, and maybe talk a little bit about the artwork itself.
Well, that was really funny because we painted it purple. It was my ex-wife's favourite colour. So I painted it purple because she was the one that actually, I've always dreamt about Peterbilt's. When you watch American and Canadian movies and stuff from this side of the world, it's all Peterbilt trucks. So I had a passion since I was probably 10 or 15 about Peterbilt's. And to actually own one, I never thought I would own one. And we bought that truck. And I called it the Phantom after the song, Phantom 309, which is about a truck driver misses a school bus and killed himself. It's a very beautiful song, and that's why I named the truck Phantom 309, the Phantom. And the artwork, little did I know, because I'm a truck driver, is a magazine, the Phantom magazine, and I didn't even know about it. And a guy in Melbourne I wanted it airbrushed on the side of the Phantom. And they did that, and I never seen any of it until the day I picked that truck up. And he said, if you let me do what I want, you'll love it. So that's how the artwork was off everyone thinks it was to do with the comic book, but it wasn't. It was to do with the song. Was how I did the artwork on it. And now it's become iconic. It's just...
Now that we've cleared that up, we've got to dive deeper. And, of course, you got to tell us how that moniker of Sludge, how you got that name.
That was the very first day I was in Australia. Everyone over there used to drink like little glasses of beer, sevens and middies and stuff like that. Anyhow, in New Zealand, we all grew up drinking jugs of beer. So at about 10 minutes to closing, I bought everyone jugs of beer. And of course, you got to remember, I've never met anyone in Australia. This was my first night. So when we left, they were just going to leave the beer on the table. And I said, like, have you? So I started at one end and drank my way to the other end of the table before I left the door. So in the morning, one of the drivers called me Sludge. I think it's Sludge Guts or something. And then it went to Sludge Pump. And then within 24 hours, it went to Sludge. Even all my wage slips came with Sludge on them. Everything, like, nobody knew me as Paul Andrews. And even my mother, before she passed, used to call me Sludge because of the show, you know. Yeah, and I've tried to change it, and I could never change it. I could ring Volvo, and they'd go, why don't you just say Sludge? We don't know who bloody Paul Andrews is. Yeah.
The ultimate would be to have that on your passport, for sure. It would be the same as trying to get Backroads Bill on my passport, but that's not going to happen. What some other thoughts about the North? As you're departing and you're sitting there in waiting to get on your flight, but other thoughts that you experienced, maybe about the people, the landscape. One shot I remember seeing on Facebook too. You were beside, I think, a Cree hunter with the rifle.
Yes. They that was like, we seen a few moose, and that morning we seen moose. And then that night we were coming back, and they rang one of their mates and brought a gun out, and they shot a moose. And it's no different to New Zealand, where they shoot deer and they eat them. Moose are just one of those animals that they all eat here. That's how people survive. I've learned that since that night, all about it. So it was really good to be able to go out and do stuff. Things like that made the trip for me so much better.
Well, you also, if looking at the Facebook photos, and I encourage everyone to find Sludge on Facebook, is that you saw a pack of wolves. That I can tell you because I've taken lots of to see a wolf. You are blessed, so that there's not much wrong going in your life, Sludge, because you were blessed to see those wolves.
Yes, that was next level. And before I do forget, because with my head injuries, I do forget things, was the Great Northern Lights. My God, that was just, I forget. I don't forget when I see the photos. That was just unbelievable. Yeah, they were just spectacular. Dusty, when he said to me, look at those, I didn't see them. And then he brought them up on a phone. And then as the night went on, because we didn't get home till about 1 a.m, then the Great Northern Lights were just spectacular. So, yeah.
In our interview, you talked about the driving conditions, and you made the analogy that it's much like the dirt roads in Australia.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty much a carbon copy. It's just we have heat and you have cold. So I found it very similar and easy to adapt to. It wasn't hard to adapt. And maybe that's because I grew up in the snow in New Zealand, but I did find it very easy to adapt because driving is very much the same.
Yeah. Well, as we wind down here, I was thinking, of all the people I've interviewed, and I've interviewed someone that's actually rode their trike to the South Pole, and I was thinking, you're one of those most interesting, unique people, and who knew that all of a sudden you'd be on the James Bay coast, and Backroads Bill would intersect you. That's for me. But before we go, give us your final thoughts and an Aussie Kiwi send-off.
Well, yeah, been a great trip. And I will be back this time next year. I will be bringing my wife back. And to Mikey and the Innes family, a huge thank you to make this happen. It's been pretty special. One of the top of my career.
Yeah, top of your career and top of one of the podcasts on the Backroads Bill podcast. Thanks so much, Sludge.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
A big thank you to Sludge for chatting with us before he flew back to Australia. And honestly, for me, it's always neat to talk to people from other places in the world. They have different life experiences. There's a different culture. They experiencing things differently. It's fun just seeing how people who aren't from around here, even within Canada, how they come and they enjoy Northern Ontario, a place that we get to live in every day. So again, big thank you to Sludge for coming on. If you enjoyed this episode, you can find more episodes of the Backroads Bill podcast on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. The video version is available on the North Bay Echo YouTube channel, and you can find everything at northbayecho.ca with new episodes of this podcast dropping every single Wednesday. And of course, at northbayecho.ca, you can find this and a slew of other local North Bay podcasts. Sign up for our newsletter, Echo Essentials, which rounds up everything that's happening in the network, as well as some of the news that's happening in the North Bay area. And that about does it. So that wraps things up for this week. We'll see you again next Wednesday for another Backroads adventure.